Hey everyone, welcome back to the Practical Microservices stream. So funny thing, I think I just in OBS, I clicked to the countdown screen and didn't actually press the button that starts the stream. So I just sat there and I watched the countdown happen and then looked at the browser that I have Twitch open up in and nothing was happening there. That was strange. Fun times. Here we go. Let's jump into meetup prep tonight. Let me pull that up again. Let's see, meetup.com, Utah Stack.js. Here it is. Here's this one. Going to talk about item potence tonight. I'm not interested in cashback. I hate cashback. Never want it. Just kidding. I just don't trust it when a browser is like, hey, you want cashback? No, don't. Anyway, okay, so yeah, going to talk about item potence tonight. It is at the Utah Stack.js meetup. This one kind of evolved out of the Utah Node.js meetup. And so this is going to be, from a technology perspective, focused on Node.js web applications. I'm not going to get very far into messaging tonight or microservices, but that's okay because the concept applies all over. And I want to fix something because it's bothering me. In the little what's going on in the lower left there, I don't have stack capitalized and that just doesn't work. Got to fix that. Okay, so let's see here. I did a little bit more work yesterday in the evening to get the bits for that right to be forgotten demo extracted from the server. I had originally this goal of making a like generic starting point for a Node application, but I have given up on that goal because in large part time and I want to be ready for tonight. And so what I have up here is I added back the dashboard portion. I think I have this. Oh no, I was doing that in a different browser and now I turn this off. So let me start the server again. Server's running. So I think that's further than we got yesterday. And if we go to it, we get this page here, and my plan is to just turn this into like it's going to be a single page app, but not in the way that you think about it. Just there's going to be this one screen and we'll type something in to do some operation and go from there to simulate various failure cases. So the goal today that I want to get to is just getting, well, by tonight I need to have the whole thing working, but so I guess step one, it helps to write these out. Then I took some notes of other topics to include tonight, but let's see. Step one, actually, I have a place where I do this. I do this in Notion, which is a fine little app here. So let's see, streaming work log. Here we go. Yeesh, it's been a while. Oh, hey, what today is a Thursday, isn't it? Yeah, that hurts. 014, because sometimes you get a day of the month that takes 3 digits. So bulletless here. We're trying to get database structure for our operations in place. And I'm being real loose on what the operation actually is. Been kind of going with the notion of a money transfer because those are high stakes. And so that helps reinforce why this is important. But it's really completely irrelevant to the flow of the meetup tonight, what the particular operation is. One of the fun parts of this is revisiting how this is all set up, but it's coming back to me. I use a lot of dependency injection, which I think is a useful tool, a very good one. One of my chief complaints with how it's used out in the wild is I like to define dependency injection as you pass to things what they need to do their job rather than having them reach into the global namespace to find it. And so at the heart of how this application is configured is, let's see, it's in lib config. Oh yeah, I had to convert a bunch of things to MJS files because modules. At the heart of it, there's this config that sets up all the dependencies in one place and passes them around. It works. It gave me the testability that I was after, but I like the way that Eventide handles this a lot more than the way I did it in the book. But for the purposes of tonight, I'm taking the structure from the book. Anyway, okay, so we're writing a test here, and it's in this file called transfer.js, which I think is the wrong name. So that should be something more like not previously done, because that's the test we're actually doing. Yes, replace it. So here we are. And this is the case where we're going to send our request to do the transaction, but it has never been requested before. So maybe this should be requested. I don't know, whatever. We'll just leave it like that for now. We will need, let me close config real quick. So the way this is structured is, one thing I don't like is when HTTP handlers do too much. And so I had these, what I called actions, set up here. It's probably a silly name for it, but these are the functions that then actually do stuff, and they are simply exercised by the HTTP handlers. So I figure I'm going to have one called operate. Now I'm curious why I have that capitalized. Was it this one? Yeah, this is where I have, wait, what do I have here? Right, this is the thing I took it all from. So if I go back to this dashboard name test, require dashboard actions name. Oh, is that a separate file? It is a separate file. Well, then how does that work in the actual code here? So what do I want? Lib app and dashboard index. I see. Okay. So thing to make it is just pulled in separately, and then we build it here in the index file. Okay, that works. That makes sense. So there would be a separate file for this. So let's head back. So yeah, actions, how it's written right there. Okay, so we would instantiate one of those. This will involve talking to a database. So to do that, we would need to pass it a reference to the knex client, because that's how we're interacting with the database. And we're using blue tape, which is the tape testing library. Hey, SB Ditto, how's it going? During that lag, I'll just keep going here. So we're using blue tape, which is the promise aware version of the tape testing library. You're doing good. That's good. I am totally not in a mad rush to get this code ready for this evening. I will say, though, a huge benefit of always talking about the same things is that to talk about them again doesn't take a ton of preparation. So, no, it does. It's just I've been doing all that preparation prior, but it would be nice to have a code example for tonight. And if there's some mixture of live coding, I think that could be interesting too. Anyway, okay, so we need the knex client to get this operation to happen. And yes, that's what it was. We're using blue tape, which is the promise aware version of the tape library. So what we return from here is a promise. I totally do not see how that becomes a promise, though. Did I in my there we go. That makes so much more sense. It's like, cool, the outside world treats it as a promise, but that is not a promise. So we would have to call this operate in here. We're not going to have a trace ID. I'm not dealing with authentication at all. So maybe, what would we pass? We'd have to pass two things, right? We would need the operation ID and then the amount, let's say. And I'm going to comment all of this out. Oops. Been doing Ruby for a while there. That's how we comment things out in JavaScript. I'm really thinking operate is the wrong name for this because I'm clearly going with a transferring money example, not because that is the canonical event tied example. In this part, I'm doing this because transfers are things of consequence and things you really don't want to process twice. So I'm going to do that renaming now before this gets any worse. So that can stay the same, but this would need to become transfer. And actually, my TDD chops are being chopped up right now. I have enough code to fail the test and I'm not running it. So this will fail because that file doesn't exist. See if I can remember how to run this. It should just be node test automated dashboard. Oops, not previously done. And this is something I love about Tape's philosophy to testing, and TestBench shares it as well, is that the test files are just files and you can just run them. Yes, there is a way to run all of them, but when I'm working on an individual file, I don't want to have to like invoke a tool with a special flag to run the file. Like the test should just be a program in the language that I'm writing it in. So let's run it, and I don't remember what the exact language will be, but transfer doesn't exist, so whatever means that. Module not found. That sounds promising. Can't find it. Great. So we need to put that in place. We'll come up here to dashboard. We need to make an actions folder with a transfer.js file. So all that stuff yesterday, SBDitto, where, oh, 1 second. Okay. My wife called and I want to know if it's an emergency or not. So let's see here. Blah, 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 blah. Right. Yesterday, messing around with, converting things to modules rather than files that are required, because there was one dependency that seemed to require it. Uh-oh. I think I just mistyped something on my Apple Watch. All right, not an emergency. Okay, great. Yeah, so messing around with the modules, it did not end up requiring, the entire project to be converted. So this code base has a mixture of imports and requires, because that's what you want, is like, if there are 7 different ways of doing the same thing, you want to have all 7 of them in every project. So that's what we're shooting for here. All right, here's this transfer file, and that should now run. Great, it did. All right, so now we can add not previously done. That'll fail because no, that'll work. Oh, it didn't work. I think I forget how tape works. Right. Without ending. So in tape test, you have to give it an explicit, the test is now done. And if you don't, by the time the function ends, you get trouble. And so that's what Bluebird added, was that you can return a promise, and then that thing's resolution is what signals the end of the test. But I didn't do that. So we would have to do like a t.ok, like so, and now it will pass. It won't. Oh, man. Operator, okay. Oh, right, because I didn't pass it anything. But that's not the right thing to pass anyway. I forget. Let's see. Node tape. It's been a while since I've written a tape test, apparently. So what is the thing you have to tell it to be done? Is it end? It might be end. On finish. End. There we go. Not okay. That's an assertion that you make. And it looks for something truthy, like you saw in the output there. There we go. Now we're passing, but I don't actually want that. So we do want this operation. No, this is going to be a transfer ID, like so. Great. We're still in business. And then this would instead be transpirate, like so, and trying to call undefined, basically. Knex client is not defined. Oh yeah, I suppose we'll hit that first, won't we? And I think the way that we get that is within our test here. By this point in my life, I had started enjoying Eventide. So that's why we have an automated init here. Oh, it's fun to look back at one's previous cargo culting. We're not going to have a message store. We actually need to require this file. We will. So the DB is what we call it. Okay, right, because why propagate that it connects through the naming of everything? We're not going to deal with an aggregator though, so we don't need to worry about it. Tables to wipe. I think we have to keep adding those in here because testing strategy actually writes to tables. But if we use random identifiers, it's fine. We have no message store. We don't have these. And forget it, that, go away, you. Bluebird and blue tape. Test unfinish. Where did bootstrap DB come from? Oh, there it is down there. And that's blah, 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 blah. Okay, that, oh, wait a second. Aggregation migration setting. Aggregator. Okay, I've got to remember how to do migrations with knex. I don't think that'll be too terribly difficult. I figured it out before, and I don't think I'm any dumber than I used to be. So, all right, that should at least get us running, but we get this bootstrap DB reference out of here. And that's right. Okay, so let's see here. We would need to get the bootstrapped DB from, how do we get to this point in the file system? So we're in test automated dashboard. That takes us to automated, and I think automated init is a sibling to automated, which is different, I think, than how it's done in Eventide, but whatever, here we are. Not here to revisit all of this stuff, so we need to go up one more to get to automated init, like so. So that should give us the DB reference. And so then we could say DB bootstrapped DB like so. Now we should get the thing about the nil, unless I did the require path wrong. Unexpected token. Well, that counts as doing the require path wrong. Where did we do this wrong? Test automated init 28. All right, let's close this file over here real quick. Isn't it just DB? I don't know, JS. Oh, yeah, it is. Yep. You're absolutely right. Because I renamed it right there in that export. So thank you. We still have a token error here though. And I'm not seeing it. Like, this is allowable, right? I think that's valid syntax. Again, it has been a while. DB is not defined. Okay. Can't you do, I swear you can do what I'm trying to do here. Well, here, let's just real quick rule it out. A non-func with no body. Oh. Wait, that, you might be right there. Yeah. Okay, so there we go. Some module is not found. Cannot find module lib. within automated. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Yes, that was the error. I want to understand why I thought it was in the other file. So let's look at this in more detail. Oh, why did I think that? Because I was just reading it wrong, I guess. Maybe I saw this part with the not previously done and thought that was the problem, but I think I just was reading the file name wrong. Okay, so yeah, there's... Okay, here we go. Try this again. So you're going to say you can't find some right because lib is one of those ones that had to be converted. Oh man, this is going to hurt. Does this have to become a module? I think it does. I'm not happy about that. All right, so we got to make this in MJS. And because that's a module, then this might have to be one too. There's a way to, like, I think there was this one place where I was able to not make a module out of it through the use of, I think it was this file. Yeah, I was able to do this. So this is still a plain old JavaScript file. But by wrapping this in an async anonymous function that's just immediately invoked, I was able to await import this module and then call start on it. I don't think that will work for the automated init, but it might work for the test file, because the test file, we just want its contents to run. With the automated init, there's actually stuff we want to get out of it. So import bluebird from. I'm sure there are good reasons for this big change. May have to do with making the browser nicer or tree shaking and all of that, but I just not a fan, and that's just the way it is. So I think I can just do this. And then I would need to load up the automated init file. Oh, that was the automated init file. Okay, neat. But then over here in my test, oh, this is such ugly code here. So let's see. We need to make an async function that does what we were previously doing. And then invoke it immediately. Then within that function is where we can deal with this. Like so. I don't want to go through and change everything to a module right now. So I'm hoping I don't have to. Require is not a function. Where is that happening at line 6? Require is not a function. That line number suggests it's at line 6. Oh. Semicolons. There we go. And yeah, okay. Hey, look at that. For years, I had said the reasons that people say to use semicolons in JavaScript, I'd never been bitten by them. That was the first time. Whatever. I'm also not going to change that right now. So what can't we find here? Cannot find module, blah, 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 automated init. Right. Because now when you do import, you have to put the full file extension on there. So now what happened? directory import. Oh, right. Yep. You can no longer do a directory, and so you have to get the actual file you're doing, which is probably index.js or MJS rather. Because I don't know the reasons for it. It's just, it is what it is. So we live with it and move on. Oh my goodness. MJS. There we go. Haha, module is not defined in ES module scope. Oh, sure. Right. Because this would then become export default. Like so. Neat. The test is failing. Transfer is not a function. Okay, that's it's nil, or null rather. This doesn't seem right though. I think what I actually want to do is this. No, that wasn't it. Oh, right. This would be as DB. Okay, there we go. All right. Modulified. Yeah, being unaware of what the underlying reasons for it are, when I'm doing this, all I perceive is like changing the syntax for no apparent reason. And so it lands to me as just pointless busy work. But I'm sure there's a reason beyond that. Like, certainly there is. No one would have just, hey, let's have some fun and blah, blah, blah. I just don't know what it is. And I don't know how much of it applies to node development on the server side. But if it's going to be the same language, of course, that's what happens. So anyway. All right, so let's see. We've got, this file has nothing in it. So let's go put something in it. And we don't want this name one anymore. I'll just look in the other project if I want to see an example. All right, so far you are a common JS module, which I like. Just in case anybody was wondering, that's what I prefer. I'm just going to grab all this code real quick to not worry about the boilerplate. All right, that's another process instance. So it would be the system clipboard that I want. Come over here. We need to make this change. Sorry, every reader of practical microservices. We will be receiving the DB, the database. And so far, I have an await in there. Oh, right, because this was post book. So, like, I didn't use async await in the book at all because I was so enamored of promise chains. All right, cool. Test passed. Well, it ran to completion, rather. That's passing. It's not asserting anything yet. So we need to do something here, which is to transfer that. We won't have an amount. Operation ID is not defined. Oh, right, because it's still called transfer ID here. I mean, that's what I want it to be called. So let's change this one to say transfer ID. Now, amount should not be defined. Amount is not defined. And yes, this would normally come from a control. I am completely throwing caution to the wind on code quality for this example project because I want to illustrate the point of idempotence in a short amount of time. I don't feel right about this, but it is my present reality. Cutting corners can get you some very short-term advancements. The consequence of it is going to be that if this project were to become something real, I would immediately go back and pay down this neglect. It's not tech debt. It's just straight up willful neglect of quality, treating it as a house on fire moment. So we will transfer $42 because that is my favorite number to use when I need an arbitrary number. I think we should fail because this build function here returns nil. So now we're trying to it returns undefined because it has no return value. And so it'll say that transfer is not a function. Oh my goodness. Come on, son. Don't hit Q too early. Transfer is not a function. That's what we wanted. Okay, great. So we need to return a function. And you know what? It's going to be async await because that's what my boilerplate has for me. So here we go. I'm going to call it transfer because it at least used to be the case that if you gave your anonymous function a name, it made the stack traces a lot easier to deal with. And if anything is sure is that there's going to be some stack traces here. What is that? Okay. That was a work message that I don't need to respond to right now, but will later. Okay, so there we go. Now we have a function. So we should pass again. In fact, I guess I wouldn't even have needed to put those two parameters in there, but I did. Okay, great. All right, so now we've called it. Now we can start making assertions. And this is a step that's going to require a bit because I don't have the database set up yet. Let's see here. So message store.read is clearly not what we want to do. What would we need to do at this point? Ostensibly calling this function, it should have done something. And so we want to see if it did it. So there would be some row of the database to investigate. However, the thing that's important here is the whole point of this exercise is that we're going to call this function a second time. And we would want the result to be the same. It would be, no, we don't need to give a different status code. Like the whole point of idempotence is if I call you 3 times, I get the same response all 3 times. So I don't need to make the distinction of if I've made it before or not. So you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. So what we would need to do is fetch the row from the database, right? It shouldn't fail. What am I trying to say here? Like you don't fail when you call it with the same ID because that's a different result. And you could maybe make the argument, well, should I tell the user, hey, you've already done this? It's not really the user, it's the code acting on the user's behalf. You've already done this, the calling system. But why? Like if they get a positive response back, then they know the thing has occurred. And so they don't need to know like, oh, sorry, I guess I need to check my records better, not keep calling. So we would just fetch a row. But now how is this illustrating the point of idempotence here? I guess that the whole point is that the idempotence key has to come from the client. Like that's what I'm really trying to drive home here. In a world, well, this works great when I get real close to the microphone. In a world where identifiers are generated by the server, you can't be idempotent in that world. The key has... Your idempotence key has to come from the client. That's the essential part. If your identifier is your idempotence key, then yes, the ID would then have to be generated by the client. If your idempotence key is a natural property of the data, like say an email address, if you were registering someone, you don't need a separate thing to be the idempotence key because that serves as it. In this case, though, we're dealing with theoretical money transfers, wire transfers, whatever you want to call them. They don't have a natural, there's no aspect of the transfer that could serve as the idempotence key, unless you said like, this bank will only process one transfer for $42 in its entire existence. We'll also have to write the insert query in such a way that it is idempotent without failing. We don't have to, but I'm going to because... Right, we're not trying to capture something like you're trying to register with an email address that's already taken. It's not a question of something being taken or not. It's just a question of we want to make sure we only do this once. And there's a little bit of a nuance there. I'm not trying to consume a scarce resource with the transfer and giving it an identifier. I'm just trying to identify it so that we can know if we've done it before, which I think is different than registering at a website with a given username or password. Like those are unique resources that are scarce. It's a different thing. I hope any of that made sense. If it didn't, yell at me in the chat, because the more chat that happens, the more engagement this channel gets. So yeah, let me say things that are wrong, and then you can go encourage your friends to join Twitch and come in and say things at me. And you might think like, oh, that's rude and would harm him. But no, that just drives up engagement numbers and helps on the path to affiliate. All right, so what do we want to do? We need to fetch something from this database. So I don't remember how the thing works. Let's see here. Lib. Where's the, oh, it's down here, isn't it? This one. This is the knex client. And so we just end up with knex. Okay, great. I think the way that works is you ready for something? So I messed around with PHP a little bit before I got my first. So I worked as the webmaster for the financial aid office at Brigham Young University for a spell, and I was dealing with a PHP application there. So technically that was my first employment as a web developer. But my first full-time job, because that was part-time, being a student and all. Not that there aren't students who work full-time, but you tended to not get full-time hours at a university student job if you were in session. Anyway, point is, lost the point. Right. Rails is how I really got my first real exposure, first full-time exposure to web application development. And Rails uses plural tables, and man, I would go to battle for that, but I'm just going to do a singular name table because I can. I always thought of it as like this table holds users, therefore it's the users table. But the other way to think about it is, what does each row in the table represent? And I've come to like that one more, because now sometimes you have a row that represents a collection of things. And so it would make sense to give those tables a plural name at that point. So I'm now in the camp of, you name the table after what each row represents, and each row in here represents a transfer. So I'm going to call it the transfer table. But another rule to be aware of is render unto Rails that which is Rails. So for tables that Rails controls, it gets Rails namings. But do you see any Ruby on Rails in this project? Because I sure don't. Let's talk more code. All right, so let's see here. What are we looking for? So this is where I think I do need to wipe the table each time, because what we're ultimately trying to validate is that we're not getting two transactions for having submitted the same ID. And I'm not sure how, given some time, I'm sure I could think through how to do it with some sort of a writer substitute, but right, I'm just gonna wipe the table and make sure we didn't get two rows. So that'll be in the next test, though. This one is just the golden path test right now. So what is the, I think it's where, and then transfer ID is transfer ID, because casing differences, that's an advantage. Idiomatic casing in SQL and Ruby are roughly the same. Okay, so in theory, then do you see the then right here? I like it like that more. Okay, so what did we just close off there? So that would then leave us with a database row. This is where I used to plug in the camel case keys call here. Message store messages. Yeah, I got to avoid that because in this case, haha, all of the column names in MessageDB, their snake case and camel casing are equivalent. So I think I want to pull down the place where I would have actually dealt with table names, and that would have been in this project. Because I do not want to figure something new out. Let's go up one here and just open the whole directory and open the aggregators and the tests. And I don't know, the videos aggregator cataloged. Client videos where then video. Huh. So I just dealt with the casing difference here. Okay, that works. That gives me cover to not care about solving this better later. So in theory, this would be the transfer. And this is a raw database row. So the casing will be all messed up. And I think I can get rid of all of... Well, let me just write down. Dot equal. If I were... I could just go t.assert. I'm not going to because I do like tape. I like test bench more. But is it equal? Okay. We wrap all of the things in test bench inside of a test. Helpful text do, and then drop in the assert. We don't have the equivalent of this here unless I were to do like one of these per assertion, and that doesn't make sense to me. Some people will be like every test should have a single assertion in it. I don't think that's right. I think every test should focus on a particular thing, but like you don't have to rerun that to reassert something different. Like don't test 7 behaviors in one test, but sometimes to verify a behavior, you have to assert more than one assertion. So that's how I view that. And therefore it is gospel truth. I don't really believe that. Okay, we got 6 minutes left here. So transfer is going to be a raw database row, and I would like to know that, and tape, expected, actual, expected. I don't remember which is which, so here's what we're going to do. 1 and 2. And we're going to run this test, and it's not even going to get that far because this will fail. So let's just do that. And if that's going to fail, I should have run the test already, shouldn't I have? Okay, expected is 2. Actual comes first and then expected. If I'm reading that right, actual 1. Okay, great. So actual then would be the transfer dot transfer ID, dealing with the fact that this is the raw row, so it won't have been recased. And then this would be transfer ID, but shouldn't have even done this anyway because this line is going to fail because it can't find the table. There's no relation transfer in the table. BB is not a function. Right, it isn't. It's a promise. That I remember. So I should have done it like this. Like so. And now here we go. This is where it starts getting ugly. I destroyed my prettier installation on here, which I think would make this a lot simpler to work with. But yeah. All right, let's move you down here. We'll put the client up here. And then close you. We'll go like that. How about? All right. No relation transfer. Oh. Connection refused. Wasn't expecting that. Let's try turning this back on. Why is the connection refused? Is that the error that we would get if the username and password for the database didn't match? I don't know. Let's have a look at the env file. And we should be going to this one. I don't even know why I have that in there. which that's going to cause something else to fail, isn't it? In env.js, we require that from the environment. Okay, great. Okay, so 5432 view data DB, Postgres at localhost. I believe this one. Nope. Okay. 5432 Postgres view data DB. Huh. Doesn't work. Why does that not work? Did something go wrong in spinning this up? Okay, well, here's something. This isn't a messaging project. Let me open my Docker Compose. Spell dump. I don't even know what that means. Docker Compose, and I'm just going to bye-bye, friend. Is it that trust thing? I don't know. Anyway, here we go. Database is uninitialized and super user password is not specified. Aha. Yes, it hadn't started. I forget the major version where Postgres introduced that, but it's probably not a bad thing to make it difficult to have a root user with no password. So I'm not going to fault them for that. On the contrary. Okay. Now relation transfer doesn't exist. Please be that error. Aha, relation transfer does not exist. I guess they didn't contract it in the error message like I did when I said it. It's wonderful to be at this point. Now get to refigure out how to do the migrations. Knex migrations. There's a default place where they live. And there's also a program. This is something I really like about knex. And maybe it's a bad thing, but you can programmatically kick off the migrations. And that is what we do. Talking through this helps me remember how it works as well. So it's not just silliness 100%. This Postgres client, that was for the message store. Because the knex client connects separately, doesn't it? Yeah, so I can get rid of that real quick. And that will, of course, cause something else to break in here. Yeah. We can get rid of U2 and then... Okay, good. Cleaner, less to work with. So let's see here. Right. Yeah, so I need to run migrations here. I don't remember how to run these programmatically. Migration API. Knex migrate is the class utilized by the CLI. That's good design. Like, they built a thing that does the migration and then the CLI just uses that, which means now I can use that directly in my app as well. Oh, it's just knex migrate latest. So, and this will be where I have to stop, I think. So there's the client. And so then I can say client dot migrate dot latest. And what that will do is, the way it works is so that the DB that we pass around everywhere is a promise that resolves to the client. And so this is that promise right here, because everything's async in Node, right? And so this promise, when it resolves, it resolves with the client itself. So basically, by the time this then calls the function that you pass to it, you have a connected database that has been migrated to the latest version. I thought that played out pretty nicely instead of some other weird alternatives you could do to that. I like promises in Node. I think they flow very nicely. Let's see if I coded this right. What do I anticipate to happen? We should still have the relation transfer doesn't exist, but I think it will then create the migration tables in the database. So now that we're actually running, let's connect here and let's open our view data database. and it has nothing in it. I think this should put in 2 tables related to migrations. Didn't. We did something else wrong. What did we do? Aha, so it needs the migrations folder to exist to be able to run. You can configure it to put them in different places. You can even define the migrations just as regular code and then pass them to latest, but I'm just going to go with them in a particular directory. I think that will be the least friction given the time constraint I'm under. Now it should be those expectations that I had before. So what did we get? This looks slightly different. Client is not a function. You're not a function. Okay. What did we do before? We used to just call it config.db.then-client. So knex is like 4 major versions higher than when I used to use it. That was one of the things that got bumped up here. So it's quite possible that's not how you do that in knex anymore. So let's figure it out. I don't have time to figure it out. I'm going to have to call it there. I will share what it was when I figure it out. Sad. That's what happens when you don't pay attention to something for many major versions. It might not have been 4, but the one that I used before was not even version 1 yet. So knex has since. I just sometimes let's see, knex. Oh, 2 major versions. Still, a lot can change in 2 major versions. Anyway, hey, SB Ditto, others, thanks for coming. Hopefully this was fun for you. Have a lovely day. Happy coding.